Welcome back. You're watching To The Point, and we're discussing the issue as raised by President Obama in Turkey. Do Muslims have a special responsibility to speak out against fundamentalism, jihad, terror and ISIS? Mr. Owaisi, let's come to the way the West perceives Muslims. Many in the West believe that all Muslims are the same and that their faith, which talks of jihad, which admittedly is a much misunderstood concept, justifies violence and terror. And to be honest, there are a large number of people in India who've begun to perceive Muslims the same way, even though we in India should be much more knowledgeable. How should Muslims tackle this perception of themselves?
Well, I would answer for myself, Karan. I would say that I would tell these Western thinkers that they are forgetting that they were the cause of slavery for Africa. They were the worst people who ruled over India, destroyed our country. They were the ones who have, destroyed each and everything. Red Indians are no more to be found in US. I mean, it is high time that these so-called Western thinkers do introspection, read their own history, wherein they have committed so much of destruction and anarchy.
Okay.
So, we don't want to learn from them. We don't want to learn from them. In fact, Mr. Obama must say, these Western leaders must say, how is it that they claim to be paragon of free speech, democracy, equality, liberty? Why is it that Muslims of their countries are more in ISIS than from India or than from South Asia? It is for them to introspect. What is the wrong policies they are adopting?
Let me put your point to Javed Akhtar, because what I'm hearing, Javed Akhtar, and I want to check whether you agree with what I've understood, is Mr. Owaisi seems to be suggesting the fault doesn't lie in the way some Muslims behave and in the way some Muslims perceive their religion. The fault lies in the West and the way the West has treated Muslims and the way the West has treated them historically as well as today contemporaneously. Do you accept that?
The fact, no, I won't say that. I'll say that as a matter of fact, the fault lies on both the sides. But I mean, there's no point in talking about them. Yes, they have used Muslim fundamentalism, they have used Muslim aggression for their benefit, and when it ceases to be in their benefit, they hate it. One. Besides that, whether there or in India, anybody who thinks all Muslims are like that, that person needs help, because that person is a bigot himself, as much a bigot as these people are. So that will be taken seriously. Any decent Christian, any decent Hindu will not say that and will not believe it.
Okay.
That all the people are ISIS members. I mean, this is a totally crazy and stupid and foolish opinion. It cannot be taken seriously. But the fact remains, I'll again insist that please let me complete my point. I again insist that yes, you have been misused by the West for their own vested interest. Why were you used? You were used because you were vulnerable, because the grip of faith is so strong on you that it can be used.
In other words, the whole of faith itself makes you vulnerable.
More liberal thought.
Let me put that issue.
It's a package deal. You cannot stop terrorism without being liberal.
Let me put the point I put to Mr. Owaisi as well as to Javed Akhtar a little differently, but it's essentially the same point. There's absolutely no doubt that it's wrong to stereotype. But in the West, after 9/11, Madrid, London, Paris, Beirut, Ankara, it's pretty hard not to stereotype. And therefore the question is this: does the onus not as a result fall on Muslims to have to A, speak out loudly, clearly, repeatedly, and then B, make sure that people understand that Sufism is closer to their faith than Wahhabism?
Well, you see, it's not, I wouldn't so simplify this as Sufism, Wahhabism and so on. The point is, what Owaisi have said also, I would criticize that, because you cannot make it an end block. Muslims are like this. I mean, there are millions and millions of Muslims, and Muslim society is much more diverse than anything you've seen. Therefore, certainly, and the West also is highly diverse, although the West is guilty of much of what Owaisi have said, but there's also been very constructive developments that have taken place in the West. But let me come back to the point that you made. I would say that the Indian Muslims particularly have an added responsibility. The form of Islam in India, the form that Islam has taken in India, through all the inputs of our own traditions and our own heritage, makes it an extremely rich heritage which not even all Muslims in India understand. So therefore it becomes, it was the development of a highly syncretic civilization of great convergence. And this is something that we can take up with the West.
Let me put that point to you, because what you're hearing from Wajahat Habibullah, and he may not have put it quite as bluntly as I'm going to put it to you, is that the image of Muslims in the West or in the world can be substantially altered if Indian Muslims with their syncretic traditions were to speak out more loudly and clearly. In other words, we should present our Islam to the world as an example of the real Islam rather than the perverted, distorted versions, ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Let her answer that.
You know, since I've written a book on the subject, I may as well answer this question, Karan. The problem here is that when you have organized schools and organized people who claim to speak for the Muslim community, they often declare some of these traditions as being impure. But yes, India has some amazing syncretic plural traditions. It is in the music, it is in architecture, it's all interwoven. Javed Saab would know as much
is that
of
a
it
reason,
as I am.
As he says, for Indian Muslims speaking out more loudly to correct the false image?
This whole thing that you've been saying, speaking out, everybody speaks out. Yet Muslims are told to keep on speaking out. Everybody.
Well, no, you heard Kamal Farooqi clearly say that imams, leaders, parents, societies, leaders do not speak out, do not correct the children.
If you allow me to finish my one point, Karan, the problem with the Muslim community within India has been, now I'll get to what Javed Saab is trying to say, is that the only source of employment often has been you get a job as an imam, you get this, and there has been the only sort of avenues are, it's all a rather pathetic development, but the problem of becoming terrorists is actually not there in India.
Kamal Farooqi, what you've heard from Sabah Naqvi is in fact a contradiction of the point you made. You spoke passionately and emotionally for the need for people, parents in particular, but imams, society leaders, celebrities, to constantly speak out and show the right way. You've heard Sabah say that in fact it's always happening, that we do it more than anyone else. Do you want to come back to her?
No, but no, it has to be continued. It has to be more aggressively, we have to say it. Even in the past, Karan, let me tell you one thing. I have already told once that perhaps India is the only country where all school of thoughts unanimously gave a fatwa against this terrorism. But we should not stop here. That no, we have done our job, now we should stop. I continuously say that it is the duty of imams, me, other parents, the teachers, etc. to continuously say that this is not Islam. ISIS has got nothing to do with Islam. Terrorism has got nothing to do with Islam. And we must tell that there should not be any if and but.
Okay.
Whatever, that is another thing, whether Tony Blair should be prosecuted under the International Court of Law by admitting that that was a mistake, that they have killed so many Iraqis.
But that's a different issue. That's a different issue. Let's not confuse issues. Let's stick to our subject.
That's a different issue at all.
Zafar Sareshwala, I'm going to quote to you a sentence from an opinion page article in the British paper The Telegraph yesterday. It's a very simple, blunt, bold sentence. The world has a Muslim problem. When major Western papers perceive Islam and Muslims in that light, and no doubt it's prejudiced and no doubt it's one-sided, but how do you tackle that perception? Because it influences governments and it influences people.
Karan, particularly Telegraph and the likes of Telegraph, their deep hatred of Islam is well known. So it's nothing new. I mean, what Telegraph has said has been saying. But I have a different view here. What Javed Saab said, that why we are being used or why we are vulnerable. Actually, West has made them vulnerable. Karan, have you visited the Muslim quarters in Paris? It is squalid. It is worse than a Dharavi slum, or worse than Gawandi, or worse than what you have in Delhi in Zakir Nagar. Go and see the Muslim quarters in Brussels. Go and see the Muslim quarters in Munich. You can't imagine the kind of resentment. People are kept uneducated. There are no schools in this part of Europe. So they have made them vulnerable.
Okay.
And as Asaduddin Owaisi Saab said, that the highest number of ISIS recruits are from Europe.
Let me bring it. I want to bring in Asaduddin Saab, because Asaduddin Saab, in that quotation which I read earlier, said Islamic State is a blot on Islam. But Mr. Owaisi, the extension of Mr. Sareshwala's argument is that the way the French have treated their Muslim minority, keeping them virtually in ghettos, depriving them of facilities, not allowing them, not recognizing them as part of the mainstream, even though they want them, that in a sense justifies the creation of Islamic State. How do you respond to that? Because that's the opposite of what you began by saying.
I disagree with what Mr. Sareshwala has said. Maybe he has not gone to Juhapura in recent times. That does not mean that the terrorists come out of it. Terrorism, you have to understand that what ISIS is doing, ISIS wants to eradicate the grey zone. They want the world to become black and white. They want the world to fight between Muslims and what they call the kafirs, unbelievers. And Mr. Sareshwala is simplifying too much. I mean, there's poverty in India, there's poverty in Juhapura. It is a different debate which can happen at other time. Yeah. But the climate over here is that the scholars over there and who are preaching the Islam is completely out of context. Please understand that ISIS, there are no renowned Islamic scholars in ISIS. They are no renowned, and in fact MI5 had said that the best way of eradicating and controlling radicalism is for Muslim children to be taught religious education from young age, because people who have gone into ISIS have not religious. In fact, majority of them were watching porn, soft porn.
I take your point. I'm going to end, because I'm coming to the end of the show, with you, Javed, because you're a poet. And sometimes poets can express sentiments in a way that other people in prose cannot do. I'm going to ask you that question the Telegraph in Britain posed. The world has a Muslim problem. How would you respond to a paper that says that?
Give me a moment.
I disagree with that. You see what mistakes we make, whether we are talking of the West or of Muslims. We tend to monolithize them. There is no monolith called Muslim. There are all kind of people who are Muslim. There are all kind of people who are in the West. France is a country where there were huge protests against the Iraq war. Those people who are doing it were also France. That was also France. And people who are the members of NATO and they make policies about the next war or next intervention, they are also Europeans. So there are all kind of Europeans and all kind of Westerners and all kind of Muslims. To turn them into a monolith will be wrong. But again, I'll insist, at the cost of repeating myself, that if you look at the world map and mark the places where there is more religion, where there is more religious grip, irrespective of any religion, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, any. There is more repression, there is more violence, there is more injustice. Muslim community should see to it that more liberal, more modern, more progressive ideas enter the community. That is the only solution you have.
You're insisting, Bajaz Habibullah, on a word. I'm stopping Javed Akhtar. You want a word, literally a word is what you have.
A word is what I want to say. I wanted to remind us, when I talked to the diversity, and Javed Sahib had also spoken of that, the staunchest antagonists and fighters against ISIS happen to be Iran and Turkey.
Quite right, and those are Muslim countries.
All Muslims.
Unfortunately, some of the countries that support ISIS most closely in finance are also Muslim countries, Saudi Arabia. All right, I'm afraid we've run right out of time. It's one of those issues to which we can never really say that we brought the discussion to a meaningful end, because every strand and every thought leads to yet another one. And if tonight's discussion has made all of us think, then perhaps it served a really valuable purpose. My thanks to all my guests for helping us raise thoughts, express opinions that I hope have been heard and taken seriously. If you have been listening, goodbye, good night.
Nisagama Mani pamaga ni pamaga sa ni pamani sa pasa जहाँ तक याद आती रहेगी।